So let's try the first few phrases. Now, I'm going to show you 4 different ways to play the descending phrase. And so on. So we'll do that in a minute. The next little phrase, after you've done the little rundown, however you do it, is to climb up the scale. And I want you to do it this way. So here we're using the outer row F sharp. And we're playing every note in the following sequence with index, middle, index, middle, index. So we end up with the index on that B. And that's very important for what comes next. So just practice that. If you do it on the row, same principle applies. Alright, so the easiest way, or the simplest way to play the first 4 beats is simple quarter notes, crotchets descending, and nothing wrong with that, especially if you give the notes a little bit of shape. Don't just blast them out. But so pretty simple fingering wise, you just put your ring finger on the B and then do the little sequence that I showed you. Now, the next way of doing it would be to use 8th notes in this fashion. And there's a very interesting thing we do with our fingering here, which will come in very handy all through this tune, and especially when we get to playing triplets in this same part. So B, C, A, B. Now you're on the G. Next note is B. Sorry, A. But play the A with your 3rd finger, and then your F sharp. That helps your fingers move down towards the E. And the C sharp D note pairing works for us favourably here because we're sort of slurring across the beats, because we end up taking 2 notes in the same direction, but sort of across the beats, as it were. Not here. Which is nice. It's kind of a fiddle player might sometimes bow the tune like that. Now, the next way would be to play triplets, and bit of bellows in and out here. You need to know exactly what you're doing with the pushes and the pulls, and you need to accentuate the first beat a little bit. Especially when you get to play it faster, you'll need that emphasis. Now again, the fingering. 1, 3, 2. Now I'm staying on the row for this descending passage and neglecting the outer row F sharp except till I get to the little run up. You could experiment with ways of including the outer row F sharp in your run down there, but I like the distinct feel of the notes that you get there. Alright? Now, Let's one last way of playing it. That was triplets, if you like. Not really staccato, but let's look at a way of playing slurred triplets, where you do the triplets all in the same bellows direction, and this would be like this. Now when you play it slowly, it doesn't sound too good, but as you speed it up, it starts to sound okay. So it's BCB, ADA, GBG, but use your third finger here, and then a second. As you get to speed it up, it starts to sound sort of okay. And again, this technique of using your third finger to free up your second and third, thicken your index and your middle, will come in very handy when you're playing triplets in lots of other passages in tunes, and maybe we'll get into that some other time. But for now, there are 4 ways of playing the first little phrase of The Rights of Man. We start on the ring finger. And so that looks at the first 2 little phrases there. Now for the next passage, we played the first 2 little phrases, if you like, the first 2 bars in 4 different ways, but we always end coming up the scale, and we end up with our index on this B, and that's very important because the next phrase we're perfectly positioned with the B, and here's where the next phrase goes. We go up to E with our middle finger, I could use the outer F sharp going up and down, but I don't like the phrasing. I like it separate, going up and slow coming down. Now again, bring your third finger close here. Get your ring finger on the C naturally here. Back into this first phrase. Last phrase. Again, your outer F sharp comes in very useful here for the phrasing. Rather than, so that last phrase. So that takes you through the whole first part.